Hanging around after last orders. Still so far from
Hi
home.
Aries, welcome to 2025. Welcome to your January horoscope. I hope you had an amazing new year. And if not, I hope that you're at least excited for what's to come. In January, we actually don't have a lot of planetary movements, especially compared to other months in 2024. But the planetary movements and transits and aspects that we do have going on are actually quite powerful and quite important. So let's get into it so you know exactly what to expect in the year ahead. We start off the month with one of those big guys, which is the opposition between Mars and Pluto. On the same day, we also have Venus entering the sign of Pisces. For you, Aries, the opposition between Mars and Pluto is happening in your 5th and 11th houses. Because both Mars and Pluto can be quite intense, especially when they're opposing each other, on this day you might be feeling some frustrations, there might be struggles of power, and in general, just uncomfortable feelings, because we are talking about Pluto after all. For you specifically, Aries, again, because this is affecting your 5th and 11th house, it could be anything on the axis of doing things in the moment, having pleasure, having fun, having a good time, versus delaying gratification for your future goals and your future ambitions. So you might see yourself struggling with those two, and you might feel like there's certain powers that you are giving away. You're losing some of your power. You're not able to accomplish some of these future goals that you have. Perhaps maybe because of the things today that you cannot say no to. Some of those pleasures that ask things of you today, they may seem small, but they might be having a huge influence on your future. 3 days later, Mars will move back into the sign of Cancer, actually. So because Mars is moving back into your 4th house, you might see that these Mars retrograde frustration, feelings of feeling stuck, feelings of stopping and going are also now translating to your home life. Maybe it has to do with your familial relationships. Maybe literally with your home. If you're going through home renovations or trying to move, there might be a stop and go action there. And don't forget, the 4th house also represents our inner feelings. So with Mars entering your 4th house again, there could be this feeling of wanting to spend alone time, wanting to get to know what's happening internally, but not being able to. Again, that stop and go action. Don't worry, the Mars retrograde lasts only for one more month. In February, it will go direct. So we will get through it together. I believe in us. We got this. A couple of days later, on January 12th, we have another one of the big boys. We have the North and the South Node changing signs. And while I will go briefly into what this means here in this video, I wanted to let you know that I will do a live dedicated all about this transit. We're going to go into so much detail, what this means, and we're going to go through each of the rising signs as well. So if you want to make sure you catch that live, make sure you hit that subscribe button. For you, Aries, the nodes will be entering your 12th and 6th house, going from those prominent 1st and 7th houses to a little bit more of houses that are a bit hidden, if we can say so. So you might be one of the signs that is actually maybe relieved that the nodes are leaving your 1st and 7th house. You might have found that for the last 1.5 years with the nodes in Aries and Libra, that you were just going through a lot. But I mean, the work doesn't stop. I think every transit that we have going on is in a way trying to help us all become better people. And now that you will have the North Node entering your 12th house, you will have a sort of like a karmic calling to actually focus more on your spirituality and to focus more on your ability to let go. Be careful for the next 1.5 years of the shadows of the 6th house. Be careful of being overly focused on your health and your routine, being too rigid, finding a certain lifestyle belief system to stick to, and not wanting to pull away from it even when it stops making sense. Be careful not to drive yourself crazy with seeking perfection of yourself. The North Node moving into Pisces in your 12th house is all about you getting in touch with unconditional love. Unconditional love for yourself and unconditional love for others around you. All right, all of that being said, again, I am doing a live on the nodal change. We'll go in so much more detail about what you can expect. So if you want to make sure you catch that one, make sure you click subscribe. The next day, on January 13th, we have a full moon in the sign of Cancer. This full moon will be taking place in your 4th house of family. So you might find that you are reaping what you sowed when it comes to your familiar relationships, when it comes to the state of your home and the state of your internal world. Mars is quite close by to the moon, and Mars is retrograde, remember. So be very careful during this full moon about stuffing all your feelings inside and not expressing perhaps some of the anger or uncomfortable feelings that you might be going through. Mars retrograde can tend to mean that we repress our emotions, and that is especially so true if we consider that Mars is in Cancer, a very sensitive zodiac sign. Very, very interesting. The next day on the 14th, Venus will square Jupiter. So during the full moon, the square won't be exact, but you will still feel its influence. And because of that, I do want to caution you against overindulging in some of your desires. I can imagine with a full moon in Cancer in such a sensitive house as the 4th house, with that Mars retrograde, that is maybe encouraging you to keep your feelings inside instead of expressing them. And we have Venus squaring Jupiter, which is this overindulgence in what we want. There is a sort of word of caution to just be careful not to overdo it. Just be very mindful that the uncomfortable feelings are temporary, and be very mindful that the desires you carry out on this day are not something that a week later, once the full moon has passed, that is something that you regret. Then we enter a period of about 4 days where things are a little bit uncomfortable. So this 4-day period is from January 16th up until the 21st. Actually, that would make it a 5-day period. And the reason this is quite tense is because we have the Sun, who will be opposing Mars. Again, after it opposes Mars, it ends up entering Aquarius. And just as it does that, it also conjuncts Pluto. I think what also adds to this tense flavor of these 5 days is that during that same period, we have Venus conjuncting Saturn. Again, bringing some of that tension, some of that struggle that Saturn can bring with it. So because the Sun is having a conversation with Mars and Pluto, pretty much at around the same area where they were opposing each other at the beginning of the month, what you will find during this week is that probably the same themes will come up. The same themes at the beginning of January when Mars and Pluto were opposing each other. So those frustrations when it comes to, do I have a good time now or do I delay gratification and plan for the future? You will see those struggles coming up. What's very interesting, again, as I said, Venus is in a more difficult position this time around than it was when we first had the Mars and Pluto opposition. Now it's conjunct Saturn. So what might have helped you at the beginning, which was probably your spirituality, your practices to withdraw to your own space, your practices of taking care of your mind, maybe dreaming, taking naps, isolating yourself from others. These practices you might find are not helping you this time around during these 5 days because there is that Saturn that is conjuncting Venus. Again, I do want to share that this is temporary. All of these transits are temporary. And even though I recognize that for a lot of us, this will be a frustrating week, I would also encourage you to go through it and to see if you can find time after the emotions have passed to reflect on what it is that you have learned and what it is that you want to take forward after this transit. And that's it. We have one more transit and then we are done with January. So I told you it was going to be a short one. That final astrological event is actually the new moon in Aquarius, which will be happening on January 29th. For you, Aries, this new moon is in the 11th house. You see this 11th house highlighted a lot in January. And what's actually really interesting is, yes, you are starting a new chapter there. Perhaps you are coming up with new goals for your future that you didn't have before. Perhaps you are joining a new community or group of friends that you didn't have before. What's very interesting is that we are coming closer and closer to a great conjunction in Pisces. We now have Venus and Neptune and the North Node working closer and closer to their conjunction. The conjunction will happen in February, so we won't talk about it now. But I do think it's beautiful that we have this influence already brewing underneath the surface during the new moon. This conjunction is in your 12th house. So again, what might help you during this new moon is relying on your spiritual practices. Perhaps it's during meditation, if that is your spiritual practice, that you get an idea of, wait a second, this is actually how I would like my future to be. This is actually a goal that I want to work towards. Or whatever else your spiritual practices are, whether it's doing your skincare, or whether it's drinking a cup of coffee in the morning before doing anything, whether it's just taking a couple of breaths. I would really encourage you to see what's brewing there underneath the surface, because it might really fuel this new start for your future goals and ambitions. I will add one more thing about this new moon, which is that Uranus is about to go direct, like any minute. So we have the new moon on the 29th, and we have Uranus going direct 2 days later on the 31st. Because of that, because Uranus is about to go direct, you might also be feeling a lot more courageous to be yourself, to finally work towards goals that you care about, not goals that society has defined for you, but goals that you actually would like to achieve. And for you, Aries, Uranus is going direct in your second house of finances. So these might be financial goals. And these might be things that you want to try out in order to treat your finances uniquely and not according to what society's standards are. So overall, Aries, I think January can be quite exciting. Sometimes we, of course, can be frightened when we hear about transits such as Mars opposing Pluto. But again, I think it's really good to approach this period as at least we will learn something from it. The houses that are highlighted the most for you are the 4th, 5th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th houses. So we see a big focus for you in January on your home, on balancing pleasures today versus planning for your future, and of course, spirituality. These are the main themes for you in January. So I do hope that you spend some time reflecting on them, you spend some time giving them attention and time. Thanks for joining me, Aries. Make sure you subscribe so that you can check out that live on the North and the South Node coming very soon. Oh, and I forgot, I have something very important to mention. I am actually doing a live event here in Amsterdam. I am doing, together with Atelier Clay, doing a workshop in circle with pottery and astrology. This will be happening on January 25th, and we will be building a bowl using hand building techniques while we have a discussion on the 2025 astrology. So if you live in Amsterdam, I do hope you can join me. I've left the details down below in the comments. Check them out. And if you would like to register, go ahead and email this email that's showing up in the video right now. Thanks, Aries. I look forward to meeting some of you if you do live in the Netherlands area. Have a great January, and I hope to see you again soon.